Thanks for joining us. It is it's fall, as you can tell. The weather has changed, and with that, we have a new guest with us. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Dix. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, man. Thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you again.
Yes, of course. As busy people, we of course don't get to see each other as often as we would like, but we try to stay connected, especially in the cannabis ecosystem. Maryland cannabis ecosystem is but so big, right? So,
Mm,
well,
yes,
I appreciate you, and for people who don't know, tell them a little bit about yourself and what you do.
of course. I appreciate that. So I'll just try to make it as quick as possible. I've been in the Maryland cannabis industry for a little over 4 years now. I originally come from Ohio as a clinical pharmacist and got the opportunity to work in a dispensary in Baltimore County as the clinical director. And I've gotten to train staff, interact with patients one on one. I've gotten to teach classes, at some of the local pharmacy schools, or even speak at the Cannabis Science Conference at Baltimore, down in Baltimore City. Um, yeah, so it's been quite a journey, and I have to say my favorite part about it is one, being a patient myself and getting to experience the healing, and then getting to connect with people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's not give we got to say the name here, right? So, I think it's Kip, right? It's Kip, Maryland is
Yes,
the dispensary.
yes,
And,
Hip
I will
dispensary. So this
yeah,
is the
exactly. And I will say, full closure, guys, I've been there, and a good brother of mine, Mac Dawson, introduced me to Kip, and I believe he actually introduced me to you, Dr. Dix.
that's right. Yeah, he's a great man.
One of the great things about Kip, and it was for me, I've been a medical patient for going on a couple years now, or actually more than a couple, actually. So, I think it's coming up on 3 now, and I didn't really venture outside of my bubble too much. So I stayed in that, Prince George's region. But in the last year or so, I've definitely been going to more dispensaries across the state of Maryland, and not just the dispensaries, but processors, some grows, so you can get that quote unquote expertise, right? So after a while, after keep doing it, you get this expertise and you get to actually see the medicine. But I deviated. The cool point I was going to say about Kip was that you guys have a drive-through, right? So you
Totally.
guys are the first people that I knew as a dispensary. I know that there's a few that
Mhm.
do, but you guys are one of the first to have that drive-through component, which was critical during COVID, right? So like, how did that work?
Absolutely.
I felt like your guys' business, drive-through business, had to have grown during COVID, but like, how was that whole experience?
Yes. So actually, COVID is where the drive-through business started. So one of the things that we offered during COVID was curbside, and we had communicated with the commission a couple times about, are we able to do this? Would this also count as like a curbside operation? And you know, after a couple weeks, we realized that it was something we were going to be able to do, and they started planning the construction, and just you know, before we knew it, we were installing the whole drive-through system, and we had to run curbside only for those several weeks that we were doing all the construction. But it was really awesome. And then since it's been running, it's been a blessing, honestly. And not just for us, but even for a lot of the patients that really can't afford to leave their kids in their car or their pets in their car, or, they got to speed home to make dinner and they don't really have time. It's a really huge help, I think, for us and the patients.
And that's something great that you highlight. I mean, the fact I've never actually used it, but I do appreciate the ease of convenience. Right. So like for me, I'm like a kid in a candy store. I like to be able to go in, ask questions, like, kind of just see the way it's set up. So, I'm not one that will do the curbside or the pre-order, but if I do need it, I'm glad that you guys have the capacity to do it. Um,
Dude, I'm right there with you, man. I mean, as a patient myself, I've come to really appreciate, inspecting the medicine. If I could even smell it, which I know is really difficult to do in this state, but in general, if you get to really tell the quality of something first, that's really part of the experience. Um, but if you come
yes.
to know that something's a great product, and regularly, and you just slide through the drive-through, it's a bit of a fun experience. It's kind of surreal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I agree, and I think one of the things we talked about last time we linked up, and I don't know if you've had a time. Have you checked out Trichome Institute yet?
I have taken a look at it, yes, and
Yeah,
actually I
like
looked at it before I even came to Maryland. Interestingly.
oh, okay, okay, yeah, no, because like the Trichome Institute, I know that I definitely stand by it. I know Max stands by it. So
Mm,
far, it taught me a lot about terps, and I think that is just it's great that educational piece because that educational piece makes people more of a responsible consumer, right? And so that is important. But yeah, I mean that was the only reason I bought. I'm gonna link up with Chef Brandon soon. So I thought, hey, did you check up on Tricom? Because I remember you were using or you promoting another program. What was the other program?
the healer.
The Healer. Yes. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, you got to send me that link. I still gotta check that one out then.
Yeah, it's real simple. Just healer.com is their basic website. And then if you search deep enough, you'll find their what's called industry training program, and it's a paid program. But that really, when it was first designed, it was designed with Maryland laws um, in mind, so that each of the modules would count for each of the regulations going down. It was really quite thoughtful. Um, yeah, so that's another one I would recommend in addition.
And I'm segueing here a bit, but I'm definitely gonna check out healer.com, right? Healer.com. I'm definitely gonna check that out. But I'm segueing a bit just to get some of your personal experience. So
Sure.
I know that I'm doing a lot with the senior communities around education, especially around education in regards to CBD and just hemp and other cannabinoids that exist. And for me, I think that CBD can be used to like wean seniors on to THCA and other products, right? Like those holistic options. And I've really seen some success with seniors, of course, like because a lot of it about education, canceling the stigma, and having credible sources like yourself or other people in the industry speak to them and answer questions for them. Have you
Mhm.
been able to like convert non-believers? Like what is a success story you have where there might have been someone who was very apprehensive and then you interacted with them and you got them to change their mind long term and now their life quality has changed or quality of life has changed? Do you have any of those
Yeah,
stories?
yeah, of course. Yeah, so it's really interesting because I'll just start with this. When I first came into this industry, like I said, I worked in clinical pharmacy in a hospital for a little bit, and I was in the service industry as a bartender and server for years. So, you know, I, I picked up on how to like deal with people. And coming into the cannabis industry, one of the things I realized was like there's going to be a generation of people, and it might not be like a generation, an age group per se, but there's going to be a type of person that thinks that they know a whole lot more because they've been smoking just as long as I've been alive, you know, so to speak.
Yeah.
And I invite those people to come in, and I treat them with the absolute same amount of respect as I would treat somebody who wants to know every piece of information that's in my head. And the thing is that over time, once I get to know these people better, I might start to then suggest trying a different strain or trying a new way to smoke it or maybe trying a new edible or something. And then slowly over time, once they, develop trust and you actually develop a personal relationship and you guys can just, talk about anything, they're a lot more open to those suggestions um, about changing the way they use it. And a lot of times when they do, they notice their own conditions improve or their own personality improves. And sometimes it takes weeks, sometimes it takes months, but you know, everyone just needs a little bit of love and plant medicine.
I like it. Everyone just needs a little love and plant medicine. I like it. I like it. I had to say it twice. So I completely agree with you. And one of the things that I commonly say to the seniors, and I'm sure the root cause of pain is inflammation, right? So a lot of times you take a lot of other pills or you're using, products to help with that. There's natural things out there that can help out with that, right? So, just being able to be aware of what those are and to not be fear mongered, right? Because a lot of times you have to just, tell them, hey, this is, not psychoactive. You're not gonna, get this euphoria or this giddiness, but it will help reduce inflammation. It will help, with pain relief. For me, like, I was a person who was a recreational user well before being a medical patient, right? Like, but I believe in people use, so the medical adult use, I believe in people use, right? But now as a medical patient, I can say that, I am a more educated consumer, you know what I mean? And, I've went through that trial and error of what works for me, what does not, what methods, how I consume, all of those things, I've been able to, kind of find out through trial and error. And it was a lot less harmful than, trial and error with, opioids or prescription pills. I'm sure you yourself as a pharmacist, can probably, speak to that.
100%, 100%. You know, one of the things that we have to understand, especially as new cannabis users, is that everyone's body is different and everyone's going to respond differently. And experimentation then is the name of the game, because you got to figure out what's right for you. And like you said, this plant is way healthier. It's way easier on the body. Even if you do take a little bit too much and feel nauseous, it's going to be way easier for you to experiment and try to find the right cannabis than for you to, take anything else that you're not prescribed to. And then
Yeah.
to your point about, helping the elderly understand about inflammation and pain and using something that's not really going to get them high. Yeah, really helping them understand that, like, there's lots of plant products out there, even essential oils. When I do research about terpenes, a lot of the terpene research talks about essential oil blends, and they get these blends from extracting, like, the oils out of the plant straight up. And so you're going to have a different blend of these essential oils that they find actually have sometimes anti-cancer properties or anti-inflammation or even pain relief properties. And so, the fact that nature produces all of these things in plants and fruit and flowers, it's remarkable. And helping the elderly really see it from that perspective, that, we're just using herbs and, natural remedies. Sometimes I
And
think that's a good way of helping them warm up to it as well.
and just to give people like a baseline, I try to help people understand that terpenes are in everything. So what are some common terps and some common items you'll find them out in the world?
That's a great question. So, some of the most basic ones, everyone knows lemons and limes and, like, citrus. And so there's a terpene called limonene,
Ooh, that's
which
my fave. That's
it's
actually my fave. Yeah.
and it has these remarkable effects that, for most people in animal studies, limonene usually provides this euphoria. It provides anxiety relief. It also can activate certain parts of our immune systems and is usually invigorating. It's good for daytime uplifting, having a good old time. And
I feel like I feel like personally, limonene helps me focus. With the ADHD, like I feel like that's one of my favorite strains. But then sometimes you need to tone it down because that limonene can make you, racy, right? So sometimes you need to be in the middle, or you need to use maybe a little CBD in conjunction.
right. So exactly. So, going back, everyone's a little different. So everyone's going to need a little bit extra this or a little bit less of that from their bud or from their tinctures to get the best experience. And so, yeah, too much
And
of one terpene. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna ask one thing. What about mangoes? So somebody
Yes,
asked
yes.
me what about mangoes.
I think that's the most commonly well known one, is that mangoes have lots of beta myrcene in it, and that is also a terpene that is very commonly found in cannabis. It's great for pain and inflammation, and it is quite sedating when
Yeah,
you consume enough of it.
that
Um,
couch. That's that couch
yeah,
lock. That indica. Yeah.
precisely. Yeah, so everyone who's a fan of indica, you're most definitely in love with myrcene to some degree.
And so like me being a person who likes to, of course, see things firsthand. I went to Colorado, got to see, one of the meccas, right? In the U.S. we have, and there were more dispensaries than there were Starbucks. Beautiful, beautiful. Like I think it was like 1,000 plus, from
Wow.
medical to recreational. Sometimes some of them in the same building, separated by a wall. Beautiful
Incredible.
thing, but they didn't have the terp profiles on the bag. So
Yeah.
that was really, mind blowing to me, how that, like, I feel Maryland got it right in that aspect, right? Because, like,
Spot on.
that terp profile for me, it helps me decide which strand I'm gonna get, because at the end of the day, I know that, like, okay, this is gonna make me feel this way, or I have an inclination that this will make me feel this way. When I was in Colorado, there was a lot of great stuff, a lot of stuff grown organically, a lot of organic soil. Definitely a lot of great things, but then they only had the THCA percentage for the most
Mm.
part, and that's just basically like one of the things I've learned is like those high THCAs, they could be like a not as much as they live up to with the hype, right? Like the hype is like, this is the rapper weed, this is the hype beast weed, you know what I mean? Like, but then you use it and you utilize it and you realize, wait, the properties aren't, all that, and I don't have these effects, and then you realize you're paying for a name sometimes,
Yeah.
or you gotta be careful with sometimes people spray on to, make their cannabis different colors and this, that, and the third, right? Like, so,
Yeah.
that is one of the things that I like really appreciate in Maryland, with that we had those terp profiles, so I was able to see caryophyllene, myrcene, humulene. I was able to see all those terps and know what a terp profile it had.
Exactly. Yeah, we're only one of a few states in the whole country, and the terp profile, basically, for anyone who doesn't know, is kind of like the nutrition facts of your bud. You
The
know,
nutrition facts. The
yeah,
nutrition
it's like
facts.
you flip
Yes.
it over, you look on it, it's got like this much THC, this much CBD, but then it's got all these terpenes on it, and that's going to be your flavor, and that's going to be really what makes your sativa or your indica. And it also has a lot of the medicinal effects. So if you're going after like anxiety relief, or you need to focus, or you got pain, or whatever, you want to look at those terp profiles and figure out what effects do those terpenes usually produce for people. And that's yeah.
See, like I just came with a little name. We're called the Terp Facts. Like Carfax. Did you get the Terp Facts? You know what I mean? Like,
I like that. That'd be a
exactly.
good name for a testing lab, so people can always get their stuff tested and legitimized.
I just want 5%. Whoever takes that idea, just 5% for the name. But I appreciate it. And so, Alex, a few more questions for you. What I wanted to say was, I've been surprised in kind of like, I think I told myself 10 years ago that wouldn't it be great if I could, lobby for the legalization, of cannabis. Of course, that's, one thing I'm doing, so I'm proud of that. But, as I've seen is we push this legalization, and legalization does go forth. What impact, or what impact would it have on the medical market? And, are you looking forward to legalization? Because I know it's coming down the
Mm,
pipeline. I'm
both
definitely
great
looking forward
questions.
to it. But I want to make sure reparations are on the table, and I'll tell you about that later.
Okay, that's a good idea. Um, so the two questions: how do I think it'll impact medical? So I think as long as it isn't rolled out properly, I think it could really help medical. So for a couple reasons, there are a few states who or that have programs where there's a cap on the THC limit for their adult use, but there's no cap on the medical. So for those who need a higher THC product, you're going to want to go medical because you might be able to get that. Now,
Like the RSO, like the RSO, for example.
and again, I don't know if Maryland is doing that, so that's just something to consider. Another thing is the taxes. So if you're getting adult use products or recreational products, you're likely paying a little bit more, or sometimes a lot more, in taxes. For anyone who's gone to Vegas, I went out there one time, and oh man, the taxes are astounding. But if you're a medical patient, they're a little bit less. So being a medical patient might give you better prices. And then I know a lot of stores may end up having like priority lines or priority checkout for patients. That's something I've seen in other stores. And so, if myself or other clinical directors are around in these stores.
I haven't seen that. Wait, they doing that in Maryland?
No, not that I'm aware of. That was something I saw in Vegas, actually.
You're saying and in the state. Okay, yeah. I was gonna say, okay. I got you.
These are potential things that could make the medical market boom just as big as the rec.
Yes, that makes sense.
But we'll have to see how it actually gets rolled out.
I mean,
then
that's true.
Go ahead.
That's true. No. I was agreeing. I was agreeing with you.
And then number 2, am I excited for it? I am absolutely excited for it. Now, I do see it as kind of being like a double-edged sword, though, because it's medicine. I think people need it. It needs to get out. It can't be held back any longer.
You cut out there.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, you're back. I got you.
Okay. Apologize. Okay. Maybe I was a little too aggressive there.
You were breaking down number 2.
Okay. Yes. I am really excited for it. I think it's really important that the medicine gets out to the people. It's been held back for far too long, and we've been lied to about it. I think, though, on the flip side, the double-edged sword is that we need to also do it responsibly. And given what we now know about terpenes and cannabinoids and dosing and the things we've been fortunate enough to learn being in this industry, I also think it's important for those rec users to be just as aware, because a lot of this information could improve their experiences too, whether they realize it or not.
Yeah, you're completely right. And that's why I say people use commonly and therapeutic. So one, people don't feel ashamed that they're not a medical user in any way or shape or the form. And at the end of the day, it's people use. I don't believe that the plant should have been prohibited in the first place. This is a plant that's been around, who knows, right, since the dinosaur age, since the paleontology, right? But the thought is like we know that there's reasons for it to be prohibited and criminalized, but you see the writing on the wall. It's coming, and I will say, speaking to those the medical, I realized that I'm a flower person a long time ago, but RSO, man, RSO is exactly and for anybody who doesn't know RSO, it's what is the full name for it?
Rick Simpson oil, and I always tell people it's a really thick extract of the plant that you only really need a really tiny bit of, unless you use it every day, and then your tolerance builds up. But
so I've seen that one, and I've also seen terp sap. So terp sap is a little bit different, right? But it's still fast acting. So if you have some type of oral procedure in which you can't
inhale,
you can't combust or inhale. You could just drop this on your tongue, put it on a food item, and like you said, it's a little drop, and very, very powerful. But you get some of those same benefits, and those are some of the things that have higher THCA for people with multiple sclerosis, or people that have illnesses that constantly keep them in pain, right? So sometimes this medicine just makes going through life bearable. And that's one of the things I wanted to point to. So one of the things I wanted to ask you, are you aware of the legislative push for access for medical patients to have access to their medicine while in hospice care?
I'm not fully aware of that.
Okay. Well, I'll just tell you a little bit about it. Are you familiar with Connor Sheffield or the Connor Sheffield Foundation?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, Connor, he's a rock star in himself. The mom Trisha we had on recently with Nurse Laura, so I'm sure you probably know her in the industry. But the thought is Connor, he helped make a lot of Connor and Rainer helped make a lot of Marylanders aware of some of the struggles that pediatric medical patients went through because the thought is they've now provided access to these people through that law. But we're also trying to pass this hospice law, because the thought is one, you have people like Connor who, use cannabis, and cannabis dramatically improves the quality of his life, and the life he's able to live, right?
Mhm.
And the thought is once, if he gets ill or he's sick and he goes to the hospital, he can't take his medicine with him. They can't
Right.
give it to him there, right? So it is very devastating, because like cannabis and CBD and hemp, you know what I mean? Like sometimes that's the only thing that helps
Right.
improve his situation, and sometimes a lot of others. And then you have this other problem, right? We talk about opioids. You can't talk about opioids and not talk about, all things related to, educating people around cannabis and providing more access, because we know that medical and especially safe adult use decreases opioid usage by at least 30%, right?
Mhm.
And so the thought is like, when they go back into the hospital and they're dealing with something, they're now given an opioid. They're now
Yeah.
getting re-triggered, re-addicted. Like, that's not good for anybody. You know what I
Agreed.
mean? So like that's kind of the conversation, and that's something that is definitely going to come. You're going to hear a conversation, maybe even a bill or two this year. I know that has been a conversation last year. And kind of the last point, but I'll let you respond to all of them, is as we continue to legalize, I just want to make sure that like we don't legalize it at all at any cost. Like, I want to make sure that up front in the conversation is equality,
Mhm.
or equity, whatever that might look like. Because the reason I say equality and maybe not equity, or essentially because equity has been a buzzword, especially for the cannabis industry. We've like hijacked this social equity term, and made it into whatever. And
Mhm.
but the thought is like, I want to make sure that automatic expungements happen. I want to make sure that people that are incarcerated for cannabis related charges are home, right? Like
Mhm.
Maryland has written in the bill, you can, like, the one that, if we pass at the ballot, you can only expunge that law if that you can only expunge that crime if that is the only crime that you were charged for at that time, right? So let's just say if you're charged for possession of cannabis and simple assault, you cannot apply for that. So like, that is a caveat that's BS. Expunge all
Right.
cannabis related charges, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So to go back to the very first thing, and I think it's incredibly important to have cannabis in medical settings and in hospitals. And I know that very recently it was approved for children to be able to use their cannabis in schools. Um, and so this is incredibly important, because if someone's at the end of their life, and they're on a lot of opioids, um, they're probably not in much pain, but they're probably also not very present. And to be able to reduce those kinds of drug doses and supplement with cannabis, and maybe have those people be more present and maybe interact with their families a little more, or even just feel less drugged up. I mean, it's absolutely necessary. So I'm happy to see that kind of legislation is coming through within the next 1 to 2 years. So I'll definitely be voting yes for something like that.
Yeah. We might need
Um,
you to testify. We might need you to
yeah,
testify.
I'm
So
there, man. I'm there. It's important. Um, and then Oh, and then the expungement thing. That's so ridiculous. Like, um, I'll just mention that even like, when I was going through pharmacy school, I was in I created a chapter of Students for Sensible Drug Policy at my school, which was huge about informing people about the drug war, and just, you know, how unfair and corrupt and evil it is, and how it's still going on today. And, if there's anything we can do to undo that, uh, I think
yes,
we
the
should.
successful war on drugs. You're right. I
Yeah.
agree with you wholeheartedly, Dr. Dix.
Mm. Yeah.
Dr. Dix, you still there? I think you froze on me a little bit.
Oh, yes. I'm here. Check, check.
Yes, and so I've definitely had you here a good amount of time. I just wanted to ask you a few rapid questions, right? So we call this the rapid round, rapid fire.
Okay.
Pepsi or Coke?
Neither. Sorry.
What's the drink of choice? Water, tea?
Yeah, water, black coffee. That's
Black.
about it. Yeah.
Okay.
I sometimes drink mushroom teas, reishi, cordyceps mushroom, lion's mane. So yeah, mushroom teas are probably, and then I just drink a cup of coffee every morning. But
Huh?
yeah, sorry to throw you a curveball like that, but yeah.
No. It's not a curveball. Trust and believe. Water is best for you. I would always push water. Water is going to make your skin great. Your body's made mostly of water, so I always push water. But just to see what people answer, Pepsi or Coke. I think it just tells their personality and character a little bit, right? And it's a nonsensical question.
Yeah, if you were to say indica or sativa, I would have said sativa.
Okay. And true. I was going to get to some of those type of ones. My next question is favorite strain.
Ooh, man. Okay. I'm probably not gonna be able to give you just one. But I'd say
Let's hear it out.
animal cookies is one. Very recently, Evermore came out with one called Patapeak shortbread. It's a wedding cake crossed with Cushman's. That one is pretty excellent as well. Yeah, those are two great ones.
Two great ones. Okay. Quality.
Yeah,
And so
let's keep it with those two.
segueing that one, and people might be mad at you after this question, but what's the best Maryland flower? Like as a brand, not as a brand. Like for me, it's
wow.
It's Garcia handpicked or District Cannabis for me.
Man, that's a tough one, man.
Right, we'll come back.
If I put it to what I smoke the most,
sure. Most common for you.
Probably Evermore right now, but gotcha. I'm also big on nature's heritage. I love the natural soil. They got some fire. I love District.
It just came out some new flavors. District drops some new. Yep, DC.
Yeah,
some new flavors.
Garcia's great. They have the Florida Kush is really phenomenal, and their cherry limeade is the only strain that I've seen in Maryland for the past like 2 years that has over 1% pinene. Maybe I haven't looked very hard, but yeah, like on the regular, it has at least over 1% pinene. And what I really like about that is how focusing it is. And it's also really good for opening your lungs. So if you're going to work out, high pinene is the way to go for like better breathing and oxygen delivery.
You learn something new every day.
True.
And so favorite pair of terps.
Oh, like two terps?
Yeah, if you paired them, two
ooh,
like
ooh. Yeah, limonene and linalool together.
Limonene and linalool. Okay.
Yes.
And linalool. What are some of the effects of linalool?
Oh yeah, I think you're going to say strains. So some of the effects of it are going to be antidepressant, anti-anxiety. It's good for pain. It also has anti-seizure properties to it. And then it's also sedating, so it's great for rest and relaxation. And dude, the flavor though, so like Runts is usually pretty high in linalool. Cookies also had another one called Benihana Butter that had like over 0.5% of linalool, and it's usually not very high. If you look at the terp profiles, it's you hardly get it near 0.5% or higher. But those are two strains that I've noticed that are high linalool.
So I know this was rapid fire, but then I had you just made me ask more questions, right? So
cool.
Linalool, I'm guessing Charlotte's Web is high in linalool because it wasn't Charlotte Web like created for people who suffer from epilepsy.
So it was created for that. However, I think the active components that help with the epilepsy are more CBD based. Because at least some of the Charlotte's Web that I've seen is and again, when you're talking about a strain, it depends on who grows it, what type of year, what nutrients, all that. So you could grow it in two different parts of the country and it might show up a little different. But I did not find much linalool in the Charlotte's Web that I've tried. It was mostly CBD based, and I think mostly myrcene might have been the highest terp.
Okay, fair. My last question for you: favorite superhero and why?
Wow. Oh man. Well, I have to be honest. The first thing that came to mind was not a superhero. It was more like it lives in an alternate universe, but I'd say the Predator. And
Huh?
the reason I think is just because it's like the apex of like I don't know. I just not that I find myself to be violent or vicious or anything like that, but just like I don't know, there's something about like the Predator that I just like think is just so badass and like dominating and
Predator's pretty
apex
badass.
like.
Predator's pretty badass. And I will give you you have the unique pleasure of like I'm sure nobody else will say Predator, right? So you were unique, and as I tell everybody, unique is welcome. Because if we were all the same, who would be different?
Yeah,
Uh,
that's a great point. Great point.
exactly. And so if you ever have any time this weekend, we'll be at Black Cannabis Week. Uh, as you know, there's been stuff going on all week in Philadelphia to celebrate
Mhm.
Black Cannabis Week. So it's going to be a plethora of networking. I was invited to be a panelist on the conference is called All Aboard Moving to Higher Heights Cannabis Opportunity Conference. And so I'm a panelist on a social equity
Awesome.
segment, and we're going to discuss repairing our communities. Is cannabis the answer? And and inadvertently and loudly, I would say yes, and
Yes.
tell them why. And tell them why.
Yes. Good. Because it is an answer. It's a great one. And it can produce so much in so many different ways, man.
Yes, yes. Like I think that my quote and my caption was, "When hasn't cannabis been communal?" Right. So that's the truth, and it's still communal, and still
I
meeting
love it.
friends, networking.
Yeah.
So no, I appreciate you, Dr. Dix. I look forward to having you back.
Martin, it was a pleasure, man. Thank you for having me, and I can't wait for next time.
Yes, tell people before you leave how they can stay connected with you.
Awesome. So, I do work if you're a patient in Maryland, I'll be in KIP dispensary. I work Mondays in store and remotely the rest of the week. The rest of the week, I do have my own consulting business. It's HIVI consulting.com, which is higher vibrations consulting. And you can reach me there at Dr. Dix, DRDIX at hiviconsulting.com. And there, I offer more cannabis information, and I also have some methods for holistic healing, energy healing, and natural remedies. So check me out.
Check him out. If you can decrease those prescriptions, go ahead and decrease them.
That's the goal. That's the goal. We
Yes,
want to get natural, not
yes,
synthetic.
exactly. I appreciate you, Dr. Dix, and you have a great rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Bless you. Thank you.
Yes, have a good one.
Take care.
That was a great conversation with Dr. Alexander Dix. As you've heard, he's doing a lot of great things, and definitely check him out, and definitely check out KIP if you haven't already as a Maryland medical patient. Have a good one. See you next time.